So Gabriel, what do we see here?
So this is a 360 film that we made in Nepal
move it around.
last year after the earthquake.
In Nepal?
Yeah, and so this is just a couple days after the earthquake. They're still working to unearth people, clear out from it happening. So,
and you as a viewer can move around within the image.
You can move around, you're completely in control of what's happening. And I think it just brings you in to really see what it's like in a disaster zone like this. Kind of how intense it is.
And you're standing at one point now. Can you move around, or can you just turn?
You can just turn. Yeah, you don't move. You don't get to move through it.
Okay, Gabriel Lifton-Zoline, welcome to the program. DCTP from the Republica 216. You are head of a company which is called RYOT.
Yeah.
Which is bought by Huffington Post. Mm-hmm. And you're doing immersive storytelling or immersive journalism. Yeah. And these 360 videos is one part, right? Yeah. How do you do this? How do you produce these kind of videos?
Well, I mean, so what we have is we have a network of folks around the world who do it as well as at the company. We go out and, the cameras themselves are a component, and then to make this other stuff, it's a post-production. So we have a bunch of different cameras, 30, 40 different kinds of cameras, from handheld 360 cameras that you can kind of walk around with, to big 14 camera GoPro rigs that are on 3D printed cases.
What do you see there?
And this is kind of food lines, people waiting. This is a camp where people are living in tents afterwards. This is people lining up to get food, so they're fed stuff. So we film these, we go around the world, we make stuff like this. I think it you don't know quite what it looks like to be in a disaster zone until you feel like this, until you can see it. And I think this brings you, as opposed to just a normal flat image or a photograph, you get a much better sense of what it's really like.
Okay, so this is done with the 360 cameras, where you put the camera, you film it, and you can move around as a viewer.
Yep.
What is the next stage of immersive journalism?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is both the technology is going to continue to shift. So you're going to see more cheaper cameras that are better. You're going to see the ability to, as you're saying, move around, whether that's on drones or on rovers, and really kind of start to move through things more. But it's not just the technology, it's also the stories you're trying to tell and the kind of craft of telling those. And so, we're used to a narrative way of telling a story where you have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and this can happen. And all of that has to change now to fit into a 360 world. So I think the next step is going to be a continued evolution and continued language of how you're telling these stories, what matters, where you focus your attention, where the audio cues are. All of that is kind of getting made up right now. It's a very exciting time because there's no rules yet. The rules are being written. And
what kind of stories can you tell with immersive journalism?
Well, I mean, I think you can tell all sorts of stories. There's some that are better than others. I think you certainly want to have access to things to take people places that they wouldn't otherwise normally go. You want to have enough going on. You can tell whatever story you want. It's about what you choose to deem as important, and for us it's always about having stories that kind of matter, that can push on culture, that says, hey, you need to know about this. You need to go to the Ecuador after the earthquake and see what that's like. This is what it looks like to be in the favelas of Brazil before the Olympics, and what it actually looks like to live there. So for us, that's what we get excited about, is taking people into the world and kind of immersing them in, whether it's another person's life, their story, their experience, or just immersing you in a part of the world in some place you'd never see and never understand.
We are hearing and seeing a lot about VR right now, virtual reality. There's goggles, and we can move around with those goggles already in virtual rooms. How can you use this kind of technology for journalism?
I mean, I think that the VR and the creating kind of virtual worlds is very exciting in terms of the ability to take you to a place and have you interact with it differently. I think that it's in my mind, it's not clear yet on if it's the uses for where that's journalism. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff where you're recreating something that happened in virtual reality. You're seeing a different side of it. But again, for us, it's the 360 video is more interesting. This is the world as it exists.
Why is it?
Because you're documenting the world as it exists. You're not creating a new world. And I think that there's room for both of it, for us, it's again, there's stories that need to be told, there's parts of the world you need to go see, there's things happening. Documenting those as they happen, I think, is still an important piece of journalism, and one that we're very, very keen on doing.
But you can also create virtual rooms with original photographs and videos, and you can make people move around. You can
certainly do that. You can, one of the things that I'm very excited about is augmented reality.
Yeah.
And where you can go and have, hold up your phone and suddenly you could have the Mona Lisa on the wall right over there, or you can have, a sculpture sprout out of the floor, or you can have, a city fill up with water demonstrating what's happening with climate change and what it will look like in 10 years if we don't change some of what we're doing. So those things demonstrating what could happen, what has happened, very exciting in the field.
What kind of stories do you work on right now for Huffington Post?
So right now we're still kind of telling, the acquisition just happened a couple weeks ago. We're still very much telling our kind of stories. And so a RYOT story is a story that takes you someplace in the world, that speaks to something that might not be the most popular story, the most, in terms of everyone covering it. But we just filmed last week, there's a big ivory burn in Kenya that we filmed. We're working to, make sure we're documenting, Trump rallies and what happens outside a Trump rally in the United States. We just made a film in Cuba kind of showing what it was like there during Obama's visit. So it's places that you wouldn't necessarily go, access to things you wouldn't necessarily have, and then a human-driven element of saying, here's a way to kind of feel something about this and get involved, and again, and have an action component to say, oh, I can do something about this. I can do something about an ivory burn. I can do something about voting.
What's the effect? What's the difference between the effect of a linear told, traditionally told story, and a story like this one we're seeing right now, where you can move around? What's the effect on people?
I think the effect is that being more immersed in that story can kind of drive up your, and the way your brain remembers it is different. You feel like you're there. You feel like you're experiencing it as opposed to just watching it. And so with that, it kind of, your ability to empathize or to feel more connected to it is heightened. And when you're thinking about something like a disaster zone, we made a film about solitary confinement, where you were stuck in this prison cell, like many people in America are, for 22 hours a day, for years. And even for 5 minutes, you're stuck in that thing, and it's not a comfortable experience in this tiny little room. What we saw with that, when people watch that and they take off that headset, they're changed in terms of how they believe it. We had 100% of people showing that film when we first premiered it sign a petition to help end youth solitary confinement in the US, which now actually through, not through us, but through a lot of other work, is now actually illegal. So it changes, I think, in a way, it can heighten people's response to it.
We're watching this video right now in a desktop browser on YouTube, but I think they're best viewed on smartphones.
It's best on the phone.
On the phone within a goggle. Do you think, those goggles, they don't look very good, they don't feel very comfortable. Do you think this is the future of
I think the goggles is one experience, and certainly a valuable one, whether it's the Samsung Gear VR one or a Google Cardboard. I also think that just doing it on your phone like this and moving your phone around on Facebook, on YouTube, or on the RYOT app is a great thing. We have, when you look at our app, all of our stuff lives in there. You can watch it on your phone, you can move it around, it streams. It's a very interesting experience as well, and I don't think the headset is one experience. There's also exciting stuff happening. Apple TV the new Apple TV has 360 capability. So you can sit there with your family now and watch some of these videos. That stuff's going to continue and evolve, but we're past the point when if you look at Facebook, you look at different websites, we're way past where it's just about the headset. And it's that moment's already, the headsets are one way to do it, but we're already into, things where some of our videos have 20 million views on Facebook alone from people doing this.
And how dependent are you as a content publisher on those platforms like YouTube and Facebook? And if they say, well, we don't do 360 anymore, we don't like you, what then what?
I think the whole media industry is now dependent on other platforms, and so you're not alone in all of that. We've been platform agnostic, and so we want our content to live anywhere and everywhere, and whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or Netflix or whoever, or Little Star, we want it up there.
Okay.
So that's how we
Gabriel, thanks so much for your time.
Yep.
Good luck with the program. And thanks very much for watching. See you next. Bye-bye.